Welcome to the darker side of the internet. Tonight, I'll be your guide through a collection of eerie tales, stories whispered in forgotten corners of forums, cursed threads, and the spaces in between sleep and wakefulness. But before we dive into the shadows, I'm giving away a pair Beat Studio Pro headphones to one lucky soul who likes, subscribes, and leaves a comment below. Whether it's your favorite story or the last time something gave you chills, I want to hear it. The giveaway will take place May 15th of this year. I left a link in the description below of the headphones I'll be giving away. Nick and Rick's Pizza, rules for delivering to the Chime Maker. Hello, Daryl. It goes without saying that we're beyond relieved the Mockhide didn't give you any trouble on your latest CRR delivery. We've never exactly been keen on sending pizzas to that abomination after what it did to Andrew. Not that we have much say in that particular matter. But in any case, all is well, and will thus be shortly sending you on yet another delivery to that ominous pond within that curious neighborhood. As always, we've once again included any and all information you could possibly need regarding this customer. Given how well you've done so far, we're sure you'll do just fine. But do try to be extra cautious around this next customer. It's very easy to catch his attention. You'll soon understand that is very much the last thing you want from him. Customer name, the Chime Maker. Address, 2943 Champ Lane. At regular order, sardine pizza, topped additionally with large acorns, assorted tree seeds, whole scallops, shells still attached, and smooth flat rocks. Exact toppings often vary slightly with each order. Residence description. Massive sycamore tree, growing right alongside the upper bank of Broken Hand Pond's first finger. Its branches have been heavily adorned with innumerable wind chimes of various shapes and sizes. Customer description. The Chime Maker strongly resembles a pale Asian man in his mid-20s. He's tall, measuring at slightly over 6 feet in height, and notably thin, with his ribs being prominently visible. He's entirely bald, and his choice of clothing is unique. All of it, from the baggy pair of shorts on his legs to the short jacket on his upper body, is made entirely of miscellaneous scraps of colourful fabric. The one exception to this is a long white blindfold he wears at nearly all times. Interestingly, the Chime Maker doesn't wear shoes of any kind. This is because his feet aren't exactly normal. They're much like those of a monkey, ending in long fingers accompanied by a strong thumb as opposed to short, stubby toes. They all end in inch-long, ivory-coloured, half-crescent-shaped claws, as do his actual fingers, with the inner edge of each one being thinly serrated, almost like the edge of a blade. Additionally, the Chime Maker's arms are equal in length to his legs, and his teeth are heavily serrated, much like those of a snake. The only other notable thing about him is his eyes, though, thanks to the blindfold, they normally aren't visible, which is definitely for the best. Rules for delivery. 1. Before leaving for the area, be sure to take a pair of gloves with you from our supply room, wearing them until you return. They just might make the difference here. 2. When you get close to the tree, you may hear rhythmic whistling emanating from within its branches. If you do, get back in the car and stay put until the whistling stops. That sound can only mean that the Chime Maker is seeking new prey. You could easily become that new prey if you're not careful. 3. Once the whistling has ceased for longer than a minute, it's safe to approach the tree. To find the Chime Maker, you'll have to walk under the tree's lower branches towards its trunk. Chances are he'll be hanging from one of those low branches by his right foot, diligently working on another wind chime for his collection. 4. As he always wears the blindfold whilst he works, the Chime Maker won't see you approaching him. Thus, he's easily startled by sudden noises. To avoid startling him, gently tap your finger against one of the branches. He should greet you shortly afterwards. 5. Do not attempt to get the Chime Maker's attention any other way. Any sound other than gentle knocking will spook him greatly, and he'll most likely rip off his blindfold to identify the source of the sound. Trust us, that is the last thing you want to happen. 6. When speaking to the chime maker, be as monotone as you possibly can. It's important you put as little emotion and individuality in your words while around him. He finds personalities extremely intriguing, and he may find yours to be quite artistically inspiring if you're not careful. If one thing's for sure, nothing good ever comes from inspiring the chime maker to make art. 7. Do the best you can not to look at whatever the chime maker is using to create his next wind chime. Chances are it's the most recent thing that inspired him. A sight like that is nothing short of disturbing, and any reaction you give to it might inspire him further. 8. The chime maker is extremely flexible. During the delivery, he'll often twist and contort himself into an impossible number of visibly disturbing shapes, all while working on his next wind chime. Be careful not to sound disgusted or disturbed by the sight of this in any way. He finds both of those emotions to be quite inspiring. 9. The chime maker is surprisingly comical, often making unexpected jokes and exaggerated movements regularly. Do your best not to laugh or otherwise react to his antics. A sense of humor is one of his favorite things, and laughter inspires him greatly. 10. The chime maker will want to inspect the pizza before he purchases it. To do so, he'll remove his blindfold. When he goes to take it off, avert your eyes. It's best you never see what's under that blindfold. 11. Once the chime maker eventually voices his approval of the pizza, it's safe to look at him again. He'll have definitely put his blindfold back on by that point. He dislikes keeping it off for extended periods. 12. The chime maker will pay with a handful of resin stones, possibly even giving you one with an insect or plant inside as a tip. Be certain you're wearing those gloves before you take the rocks from him. The feeling of your skin might make him curious about you, as well as what kind of wind chime the bones under that skin might make. 13. Do not be surprised if the chime maker starts removing toppings from the pizza. He's trying to figure out which pieces will be best for his next wind chime. He doesn't eat anything without making part of it into a wind chime first. 14. As you leave, make sure the chime maker is still working on his current wind chime. There's always a chance his interaction with you will have given him second thoughts about whether or not you would make a better wind chime. He rarely hesitates to change his mind at that point. Rules for when the blindfold comes off. 1. If the chime maker takes the blindfold off outside of inspecting the pizza, you need to be extremely careful with everything you say and do until you leave his sight, especially if he takes it off while you were talking with him. He only takes that blindfold off when looking for new food, so there's a good chance he's considering you as a choice. As such, it's best to take a few extra precautions to ensure he still finds the pizza more appealing than you. 2. Politely, but immediately show the chime maker the pizza when the blindfold first comes off. With any hope, he'll find the pizza intriguing enough to ignore you entirely. 3. Do not make unnecessary or dramatic movements of any kind. Those will grab his attention quickly, along with his inspiration. 4. Make as few facial expressions as possible. This should go without saying, but he'll likely find the emotions those expressions represent quite intriguing. 5. Again, be as monotone as possible while you speak. You don't want him to become any more intrigued of your personality than he already is. 6. Use the word malleable in a sentence. For whatever reason, he's not terribly fond of it. Hearing the word tends to kill his inspiration, and with it his appetite. Do not use malleable more than once. If he becomes too uninspired, he may take you captive, keeping you trapped until he can see if he'll find you inspiring later on. 7. Do not make direct eye contact with him at any point. Don't even look towards his face if possible. His eyes are extremely entrancing, to the point that they strongly influence anyone who looks into them, even if it's just for a second. 8. If the chime maker starts chuckling as he speaks, it's beyond important now that you do everything you possibly can to take his attention off of you. He only chuckles when he's found another source for a new wind chime. 9. Should you hear animals of any kind nearby, quickly bring their presence to the chime maker's attention. There's a decent chance he'll decide to investigate them for his next chime instead, at which point he'll quickly pay for his pizza and immediately dash off to collect the new source for his next wind chime. 10. If you don't hear any animal calls, instead point out any birds you see nearby, describing them with as much detail as possible. There's enough of them in that neighborhood that at least one should show up. Birds are among his favorite sources for wind chimes, so he might forget about you entirely in favor of them instead. 11. If all else fails, ask the chime maker about his wind chimes. He deeply cherishes his memories of making each and every one of them, along with the memories of the unlucky creatures and people he made them all from. Remembering them all will distract him from any thoughts he has of you, at least for a little while. Keep him talking long enough, and he may even drop interest in you entirely, instead returning to his work on the current chime. 12. If the chime maker does choose you as the source for his next chime, do the best you can to focus his attention on one of your hands. He often only takes the pieces he needs for the next wind chime, along with the flesh surrounding them, so you might be able to get him to simply take one of your hands, as opposed to other more necessary body parts. Should you have such luck, it's obviously best you get to a hospital immediately afterwards. That should be everything you need to know about the chime maker. He's easily one of the more artistic individuals in Cribble-Rock Run, gruesome as his art may be. Each and every one of those chimes represents a hapless creature that was either badly disfigured or completely dismembered by the chime maker, and he's unfortunately very good at catching new subjects, as he calls them. There are actually so many chimes on that tree that its branches have begun to sag. However, the chime maker refuses to stop making them. To him, each wind chime sings a special song, and he believes the best songs come for those chimes made from the sources with the most character. But regardless of the song's perceived quality, he's become heavily obsessed with each of them, to the point that he wants to hear as many of these songs as possible. But while these desires are primarily what makes him a problem, they aren't actually what makes the chime maker dangerous. That would be his eyes. To expand on why that is, let us tell you about a little incident that happened a while back. About 5 months ago, a hiker was found badly injured on one of the highways close to Cribble-Rock Run. He was missing most of his fingertips, as well as his entire left arm. He had been reported missing the previous day in a nearby forest by the group he'd been hiking with, and was quickly questioned by local authorities upon his arrival at a hospital. What he told them was so difficult to believe, it actually landed him in a psychiatric ward for quite some time. He had claimed that, while he was hiking, a strangely beautiful whistling sound filled the air. Somehow, his group didn't hear the sound at all, and also failed to realize he had wandered off to follow the sound. Eventually, the hiker found the source to the whistling, and was immediately horrified by it. The source turned out to be a creature hanging high in a tree and strongly resembling a man. Except it had hands and feet like a monkey, as well as long, sharp-looking teeth. The hiker was about to get as far away from this man as he could when he suddenly noticed the thing's eyes. Those eyes, the hiker had said, were beautiful. That human-like creature's massive irises contained so many colors, they looked like small circular rainbows, shimmering and rippling within its eyes like vibrant pools. They were so brilliantly colorful that the hiker couldn't look away, not even as the man slowly descended from the tree. Not even as the man landed on the ground next to him with a thud. Not even as the man grabbed him by the shoulder and pulled him into the trees. It wasn't until that man with those brilliantly entrancing eyes sunk its teeth into his arm that the hiker could finally look away. But even then he only did so because he blacked out. Next thing he remembered, he was in a hospital bed, being treated for his wounds. And this, you see, is why the chime maker wears that blindfold. Just as those mesmerizing eyes entrance his victims, the chime maker himself is entranced by each and every new victim he claims. Their individual personalities and mannerisms slowly absorb all his attention, to the point that he can't focus on anything but a ravenous curiosity of what kind of song a wind chime made from such a unique individual could make. Without that blindfold, he'd be so easily distracted by all the living things around him that he'd probably never even finish a single wind chime. So, if you would, be careful around the chime maker. And above all else, do not make him wish to hear your song. Sincerely, Rick and Nick Castillo. Nick and Rick's Pizza, rules for delivering to Shackled Jack. Hello, Daryl. We've heard your delivery to the Chime Maker nearly took a turn for the unfortunate. It never ceases to amaze us just how quickly that strange fellow is willing to make his visitors into wind chimes. But, in any case, you still have all your limbs and digits, so we'd say you handled the situation just fine. So, well, in fact, that we've decided to send you delivering to yet another customer from Broken Hand Pond. We should probably mention that this one tends to be a little invasive from time to time. That said, you've proven yourself resilient these past few months, so we're sure you'll once again do just fine. And, as always, we've provided you with extensive information on this customer to keep you well informed. Read it thoroughly, and you'll have absolutely nothing to worry about. Preparation is key to success, after all. Customer name: Shackled Jack. Address: 2901 Champ Lane. Regular order: large anchovy pizza, topped additionally with olives, sliced onions, and excessive quantities of raw mackerel guts, mackerel skins, and mackerel fillets. Residence description: small section of shoreline near the pond's northmost edge. There's a short gravel driveway, partially obscured by vegetation, leading down to it. Customer description: Shackled Jack is a male human corpse wrapped heavily in rusty steel chains. These chains cover and constrict most of his body, with the only parts not bound being his feet, right arm, and head, save for a single chain running over his left eye. Interestingly enough, Jack's body shows minimal signs of decomposition, with the only visible indicators he's even dead being his pale, bloodless complexion and foggy, glazed-over eyes. Additionally, his black matted hair sways gently around him, and, most notably, his torn but intact face is locked into a sad, melancholic expression. Rules for delivery: 1. Before leaving for the neighborhood, make sure to take with you a magnetic wristband and bottle of white vinegar from our supply room. Trust us, these items will come very much in handy on this delivery. 2. Be absolutely positive you aren't wearing any flashy or shiny objects when you arrive. You'll quite likely get the wrong kind of attention otherwise. 3. Upon getting halfway down Jack's driveway, you'll hear a sudden, sharp ringing sound. Once it occurs, it's important you do not blink until you've parked and are ready to deliver the pizza. More specifically, don't blink both eyes simultaneously. You could potentially wreck the vehicle otherwise. 4. Once you're at the end of the driveway, step out of the vehicle, firmly grip the pizza in your left hand, and blink. There's no other way to effectively reach Jack. 5. After blinking, you'll notice an immediate change in your surroundings. The shoreline will be replaced by a vast, dark expanse of water, illuminated only by sunlight trickling faintly from above, along with a pair of headlights looming up off to the side. It will seem as though you're suspended in the depths by an unseen force. Do not panic when this happens. To return to the shore, simply pinch or otherwise physically startle yourself. The shock will have you back on the shoreline immediately, though you technically never left it. 6. It's in your best interest to finish this delivery as quickly as possible. This is because it is beyond critical that you do not remain on or near Jack's shoreline for any longer than 3 minutes and 24 seconds. Breaking this particular rule will have severe consequences. 7. While underwater, you'll notice Jack, floating several meters in front of you. He'll be suspended in the water by a chain stretching down towards the pond's bottom. Several dozen grey sharks will be swimming diligently around him. However, don't worry about them in the slightest. They're surprisingly docile under normal circumstances. The only thing you should worry about at this point is Jack. He'll be eagerly staring at you and his pizza the second you arrive. 8. Avoid blinking excessively down here. Each time you blink, you'll find that you've gotten slightly closer to Jack. Get too close, and he might make a grab for you with his free arm. It's also best you don't blink your eyes individually. While you won't move forward, doing so irritates Jack greatly. 9. Should Jack manage to grab you, quickly snap yourself out of it with a pinch or slap. His hunger's greater than a simple pizza can fully satiate. 10. If, when Jack grabbed you, he managed to bite you, it's important that you soak the wound in the vinegar and put the magnetic band on, if you weren't wearing it already, before returning to his abyss. While those sharks are usually harmless, they'll become a big problem if they smell blood. However, the vinegar combined with the band will be more than enough to keep them docile. 11. To give Jack the pizza, hold it out in front of you and calmly call out his name. His pupils will seem to get larger at this, and many of the sharks will twist to look at you. Shortly, one of the sharks will grab the pizza from you and take it to Jack. 12. Jack will voice his approval of the pizza by savagely biting into it, box and all. Once he does, get out of there immediately. The sharks will join him in his meal. You do not want to become part of that feeding frenzy. 13. Jack's payment will be a bag of exactly 32 Spanish silver dollars, all dated from the year 1779. You won't need to collect this from him physically. Once the pizza's been taken and you see yourself on the shore again, the bag of coins will be sitting on the roof of your car, soaking wet. 14. Once you have Jack's payment and are back in the car, get back onto Champ Lane immediately. Don't even so much as look at your phone first. To restate a previous rule, things will get very bad very quickly if you spend even a fraction of a moment past 3 minutes and 24 seconds on that shoreline. 15. As long as the ringing sound in your ears has faded by the time you're halfway up the drive, you got out in time, and all is well. There's nothing else you need to worry about. Rules for being tethered. 1. If the ringing in your ears persists even after you've gotten back onto Champ Lane, the situation has just gotten dramatically out of hand. You were on Jack's shore for longer than 3 minutes and 24 seconds and are now in an exceptional level of danger. His influence is strongly tethered to you now. Part of you will keep going back to his domain every time you blink, without end. Fortunately, there is a way to reverse this troublesome condition. The following instructions will help you do so. 2. The second you're out of Cribble-Rock Run, give us a call to fill us in on the situation. Undoing Jack's effects requires very specific conditions, so we'll make sure everything's ready by the time you get back to the restaurant. All you really have to do until then is return in one piece. 3. While this is probably obvious, it's beyond important that you do not blink. The disposition of Jack's sharks changes drastically when people stay connected with their master for longer than 3 minutes and 24 seconds. The fish tend to get so aggressive so quickly that they'll attack the second you arrive. Not even the magnetic band will slow them down. You might not have time to snap yourself out of Jack's abyss before they start biting you. 4. It's also important that you avoid blinking your eyes individually. While it is technically a safe way to blink, as you won't go to his abyss, Jack knows when you blink either eye. He'll perceive blinking your eyes separately as a taunt. Trust us, taunting Jack is a serious mistake. 5. After about 15 minutes of initially being tethered to Jack's influence, you'll start hearing a low, raspy, whispering voice calling out to you. It will usually ask calmly for you to blink, insisting that's your best option. Do not talk back to this voice in any way once it appears. Believe it or not, this situation can still get worse. 6. Once the voice realizes it's being ignored, it will quickly go from calm and reasonable to angry and hostile. It'll start yelling and shouting threats ranging from torturing you horribly to hunting down everyone you know, often even calling out your full name too for added effect. Whatever it says to you, still ignore it. As long as you do, yelling is the absolute worst thing it can do. 7. On occasion, a dark, watery shadow will appear alongside the voice. Do your absolute best not to acknowledge this thing either if it appears. Do, however, keep track of what it's doing. The only reason Jack's shadow ever shows up is to scare you into blinking, most commonly by dashing towards you suddenly, or by jumping out from behind, nearby corners. 8. If at any point you notice your skin suddenly seems inexplicably damp, or you feel the sensation of being submerged in cold water for no reason, it is crucial that you do not blink again. Your link to Jack has grown very, very strong. This can happen if the sharks manage to bite you, or if Jack is sufficiently annoyed by your method of blinking. In any case, blink again, and nothing will be able to snap you back to reality. You'll be stuck with Jack and his ravenous friends for good. 9. Once you're back at the restaurant, there will be 5 of your fellow employees waiting for you in the back room. One of them will hand you a whole mackerel and a knife. Using the knife, carve your name into both sides of the fish's body, then place it on the ground in front of you. Next, simply shout, "For Jack Kedgia," and blink while interlocking hands with your co-workers. Upon blinking, you'll find you're still in our kitchen, albeit sprawled out on the floor and now soaking wet, with a large bruise having formed on your right shoulder. Most interestingly, however, the fish with your name on it will now be gone. 10. As soon as the fish has disappeared, the ringing in your ears will abruptly stop. Jack's influence over you has now been broken and all is well. Don't worry about that bruise on your arm. It'll go away on its own in about a day. That should be everything you need to know about Shackled Jack. As a customer, he's caused us quite a lot of trouble. You'd be surprised just how many of our employees can't get off that beach in 3 minutes and 24 seconds. Although this has only ever gotten one of our drivers killed, the others who stay too long find the resulting experience extremely traumatizing. They often straight up quit before the shift even ends, though typically they're fine otherwise. The few exceptions to this are why we tell you not to acknowledge the voice and shadow that occasionally taunts Jack's potential victims. Half the time, nothing happens after doing so, but when it does, it's never good. We actually lost one of our best employees that way. Her name was Lara, and the mistakes she made with Jack may very well be the only mistakes she ever made in those 2 years she worked for us. During that tragic delivery, Lara stayed with Jack a literal second past 3 minutes and 24 seconds. However, she managed to make it back to the restaurant without blinking. We performed the ritual, and she reported that the ringing sound in her ears disappeared completely. Several frenzied blinks later, she confirmed Jack's influence was gone, and for a moment, it seemed like all was well. However, it quickly became clear Jack wasn't completely gone when Lara started screaming suddenly. Even after the ritual was complete, she could still hear Jack's horrid voice and see his menacing shadow. The reason for this was that, when Lara initially heard Jack's grim voice, she accidentally spoke to it. What she said was nothing more than a panicked "stop," but it was still one word too many. The voice had been acknowledged, and now it was stuck to her for good. We didn't, and still don't, know of any way to remove Jack's effects if the ritual doesn't work, so when repeating it for good measures had no additional effect, there was nothing we could do. Lara did not last long in our employment after that. Jack began taunting her daily, screaming and hissing at her so much she had trouble focusing on her job. Worst yet, Lara also said she was now having a single recurring nightmare every night. In this dream, she would find herself aboard an old wooden ship, surrounded by a large number of people dressed in clothing from the 1700s, all apparently being transported to Australia. Each time, shortly after the dream began, a violent fight would break out on the main deck over stolen food. This dispute would always end with one man being wrapped heavily in chains as 4 more men dragged him kicking and screaming to the edge of the boat. A 5th man would always try to stop them, but a 6th would always push him away with a strong punch to his right shoulder. The man wrapped in chains would then be thrown overboard, quickly sinking out of sight. But a little over 3 minutes after that doomed fellow initially sank, the people still on board would then start screaming hysterically as large, deep bite marks appeared all over their bodies. Soon, whole chunks of their flesh would start disappearing, until eventually there was nothing left of anyone at all. All that is, save the man who tried to stop the cruel drowning that had taken place earlier, now crying hysterically in a corner. And suddenly, Lara would then see Jack, submerged in a great ocean, smiling madly in front of her, the surrounding waters filled with blood, bones, guts, and hungry sharks swimming all around him. He would then start laughing wildly as the sharks dove for Lara, which is always when she would wake up. After about a week of being tortured like this day and night, the poor girl went clinically insane. We eventually had to admit Lara to a mental health institution for her own safety after she tried driving back to Broken Hand Pond one day. She's still in that facility even now, stuck with the company of Jack's grinning shadow yelling and shouting at her all day, and haunted by visions of his demise every night. So on that note, we ask that you be extra careful on this delivery. It's a relatively simple one, but messing it up could cost you greatly. Just give Jack his pizza, don't blink unless absolutely necessary, don't stay on that shore too long, and should things escalate, don't speak to that voice when it appears in your head. Being eaten alive is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Sincerely, Rick and Nick Castillo. Nick and Rick's Pizza, rules for delivering during creeping season. Hello, Daryl. We're relieved to hear you didn't get in over your head with Shackled Jack. As we're sure you know by now, there are a few ways that delivery could have gone wrong quickly, but in any case, you handled it fine. On that note, we've noticed you've been handling a few of Cribble-Rock Run's more hazardous deliveries remarkably well. For this reason, we've decided to send you delivering to a few of our more seasonal customers this October. You see, Halloween is a very big deal in Cribble-Rock Run. Its residents celebrate the occasion much in the same way we celebrate Christmas, though many of them do celebrate both. And as such, many individuals only come to the neighborhood for this celebration. Unlike us, however, they don't just celebrate Halloween a single day of the year, instead celebrating the 14 days that lead up to it as well. They call this occasion creeping season, and although we make exceptional sales during it, thanks to all the holiday-related visitors, the period is one of the more risky times of the year to be entering Cribble-Rock Run. Creeping season celebrations have a tendency of dissolving into chaos remarkably fast. So, as you might have guessed, we have a special set of rules for our drivers during this period, which we've included below for your convenience. Be sure to read them carefully. Again, these celebrations more often than not get wildly out of hand. Rules for creeping season deliveries. 1. Take with you 3 bags of assorted candy from our supply room before a creeping season delivery. Put them in the mini freezer with Granny Longpaw's ham. We'll explain why later. 2. Do not enter Cribble-Rock Run without wearing a costume of some sort. Everyone in the neighborhood will be wearing a costume of some kind to celebrate creeping season, and for traditional reasons, they actively hunt anybody they see not wearing a costume. 3. You may hear large groups singing Werewolves of London while in the neighborhood. If you do, immediately start singing along. That song is creeping season's unofficial anthem. Those who sing it tend to be less than friendly with anyone they find not singing the song. We obviously recommend memorizing the song beforehand to avoid any unfortunate incidents. 4. If you notice anyone running close behind your car, throw a few pieces of candy towards them. This is one of the more classic traditions of creeping season. They'll stop pursuing you once they have gotten candy. 5. Make sure to keep decent portions of candy in your pockets at all times. If the above rule wasn't hint enough, candy is an important part of creeping season's traditions. You could get in serious trouble without it. 6. Don't be alarmed if someone in a costume attempts to tackle you. During creeping season, it's considered a fun tradition to attack other costumed individuals in an attempt to steal their candy, which often results in more than a few frenzied skirmishes breaking out. Just give them candy from your pockets and all will be fine. Be cautious of any boxes you see sitting on the side of the road upon stopping your car, regardless of their size. Chances are they're inhabited. Those inhabitants just might try to tackle you for candy if you get too close. 8. Keep a particularly close eye on the trees during this time. They've been known to get particularly rambunctious this time of year. If one of them starts twitching, floor the gas pedal until you've passed it. The thing will likely launch itself at you if you're too slow. 9. Do not stop your car near any house with a jack-o'-lantern on its porch. The individuals who display jack-o'-lanterns follow creeping season's more savage traditions. These traditions primarily involve catching people who get too close to their property. Exactly what happens after that varies slightly between individuals, but it typically involves the captured victim becoming household decor. 10. Keep an eye out for bats flying around during your deliveries. Traditionally, large groups of individuals follow them around as they fly. While these groups almost certainly won't attack you, They flail and trash about very erratically as they pursue the bats. They may even crash and slam into you if the bats fly your way. We suggest immediately running off to the side of the bat's path in advance. 11. Should you ever notice an immense elephant-sized blob of licorice and candy corn slowly rolling down the road, get as far away from it as possible immediately. This seasonal visitor is referred to simply as the confector. It encases everything it rolls over in hardened sugar while simultaneously crushing them into candy-sized pieces under its immense weight. Many of Cribble-Rock Run's inhabitants follow it as part of a long-standing tradition, throwing foods and random objects of all kinds under the blob to sweeten their flavor. If you're not careful, your car could easily end up being one of the things thrown underneath it. 12. You'll probably also occasionally observe large quantities of candy scattered across the road. This is the doing of one particularly clumsy individual who comes to the neighborhood just for creeping season. Be wary. Any number of creatures could dash onto the road without a moment's notice to gather the scattered sugary treats. 13. You may also notice caramel apples strewn about in the road amongst the candy. Do not run them over. These treats are particularly potent. That caramel is practically superglue and easily strong enough to stick your tires in place. 14. Be sure there isn't any candy visible on your car's seats before making a delivery. Should it be noticed, your car will likely be ransacked for its candy. However, the candy in the freezer should be perfectly safe. For one reason or another, none of the neighborhood's inhabitants ever think to look for sugary treasure inside it. 15. If you notice a gathering of large, branchless, dead tree trunks leaning near or over the road, do not go under them for any reason. There is a particularly large species of arachnid that shows up here during this holiday period. The skin on their legs and body is so similar to tree bark that the creatures are often mistaken for dead trees. They most commonly hunt by snatching cars off the road, then picking their passengers out with alarming speed. 16. Before leaving any property you've just delivered to, be sure to wish the customer a happy creeping and toss a piece of candy into their yard. It's a tradition, and one you could quite possibly get into serious trouble over for not respecting. That should be everything you need to know about creeping season. Much like Christmas, this holiday period is very profitable for us. Thanks again to all the seasonal customers visiting to celebrate it this anticipated season. But of course, these deliveries are quite risky. Last year, one of our drivers was nearly crushed by the confector after it caught his vehicle, and another simply disappeared without any trace or explanation. Additionally, many of our seasonal regulars celebrating creeping season don't actually come here as much to celebrate the occasion itself, but rather to hunt the prey this season leaves vulnerable. Of course, we obviously also have separate rules and info for dealing with them, which we'll be sending to you in advance within the coming weeks. In short, be extra careful in Cribble-Rock Run during creeping season, and be extra mindful of its celebrators. Do not fall for their tricks, and above all else, make sure you don't become their treat. Sincerely, Rick and Nick Castillo. Nick and Rick's Pizza, rules for delivering to Subject 17. Hello, Daryl. As we said previously, we'll be sending you information ahead of time regarding the specific customers you'll be delivering to this creeping season. Below is the first one. It should be noted that this customer, unlike many of the others you've met so far, does not wish to hurt you in any way. He does, however, suffer from a unique and rather unfortunate condition which makes him unstable. Read through the following information thoroughly to ensure you're properly prepared for him. Customer name, Subject 17. Address 2188 Carpenter Road. Regular order, extra large mushroom pizza, topped additionally with several handfuls of ginger, diazepam tablets, and acetaminophen pills. Also, instead of the usual pizza box, this order must be delivered in a well-sealed bin filled to the top with liquid carfentanil. Residence description: small, heavily dilapidated, single-level house. Several large holes dot the walls and windows on all sides, and the front yard is heavily littered with miscellaneous debris, ranging from various small pieces of furniture to large scraps of assorted automobiles. Also, the front door appears to have been completely ripped off its hinges, with nothing but a barren opening left in its place. Most curiously, the door can be seen partially hanging out of a nearby tree. Customer description. Subject 17 is, for lack of a better term, technically human. He's about 6.5 feet tall, with an emaciated stature, long black hair, piercing white eyes, and an enormous hump on his back. This hump is so big he has trouble putting on most clothing, only wearing a pair of badly tattered pants as a result. He nearly always appears to be wincing in pain, and his facial expression is usually twisted in an agonized grimace to match. There's a thick metal collar affixed around his neck, adorned with several small color-changing lights, along with the number 17 etched into its side. He also sports a set of unusually large white teeth. That particular feature is so apparent because subject 17 lacks lips of any kind and is thus constantly drooling. Additionally, his skin is a patchwork of differently pigmented pieces and sections, with numerous stitches and scars dividing them. More grotesquely, large pulsing bumps jut from his body at multiple angles just beneath his skin. Lastly, the hump we mentioned earlier is far more than it appears to be at first glance. It is, in fact, a full second spine fused atop the first one, accompanied by extra ribs, various spare muscles, and even a full set of additional organs. Rules for delivery. 1. Before leaving for Cribble-Rock Run, take with you an artificial daisy from our supply room, along with the small music box off of the top right shelf. It is extremely important that you have both these objects with you during this delivery. 2. Do not bring light-producing objects of any sort near Subject 17. They spook him greatly. 3. On the note of the previous rule, make sure your headlights are completely off before you reach Subject 17's house. The consequences of not doing so could be disastrous. 4. Do not park in front of Subject 17's yard. Instead, park just off to the side of it. Your vehicle will quite possibly be in great danger otherwise. 5. Once you've arrived, put the pizza on the ground, take out the music box and let it start playing. Shortly after, Subject 17 should come barreling out of the house, limping and jerking wildly towards you. Do not be alarmed in any way by this sight. He'll stop abruptly a few feet in front of you, staring longingly at the music box. 6. As soon as Subject 17's attention is focused thoroughly on the music box, quietly and subtly direct his attention towards the pizza, backing slowly away from it as you do. He'll shortly lunge at the pie with all the speed and ferocity of a starving beast. 7. Keep a safe distance from Subject 17 once he's begun eating. Those substances laced within his pizza are extremely, dangerously potent. Believe it or not, simply getting splashed by the stuff could quite possibly be bad for your long-term health. 8. If, after Subject 17 has begun eating, you hear a loud booming sound emanating from his chest, back away from him further. The first of his several hearts is about to give out, almost certainly due to the impact of the medical drugs he's consuming. This will be followed closely by the failure of several other organs. While this is, believe it or not, temporary, Subject 17 often spasms and flails violently as each organ fails. You do not want to get hit by this random flailing. 9. Pay close attention to the lights on Subject 17's collar as the delivery proceeds. Their color changes regularly with Subject 17's mental state and physical condition. This is not only a valuable indicator of the danger he poses at any given time, but also determines when it'll be safe for you to ask him to pay for the order. 10. Be especially prepared to dodge from Subject 17 while the lights on his collar are orange. This is nearly always the color they'll be when he first comes outside. It indicates that Subject 17 is in an exceptional level of pain and only partially aware of his surroundings. As such, he regularly twitches, thrashes, and jerks around violently in his agony. To give you a better idea of why this might be problematic, that kind of behavior is how his front door ended up in a tree. 11. Keep a particularly far distance from Subject 17 if his lights ever turn red. That means he's either in a higher than average state of pain or is more anxious than usual thanks to outside stimuli. In any case, he's not only more inclined to random, agonized flailing and thrashing in this state, but is also completely oblivious to everything around him, save for certain sounds at least. He could come charging in your direction by mistake. 12. It is only safe to proceed with the delivery and ask for payment when Subject 17's lights turn green. This color indicates that Subject 17's pain has subsided greatly and he is now in a coherent, relaxed, and overall stable state of mind. Bear in mind, this almost never happens until he's about halfway through his pizza. Carfentanil is one of the few things strong enough to ease his pain. 13. Regardless of the light's coloration, make as few movements around Subject 17 as possible and speak softly as possible when talking to him. Like we said, this fellow is easily startled, regardless of his current level of pain. Any sudden surprise can cause him to instinctively strike in the direction of said surprise. 14. Once Subject 17 has finished eating the pizza and his collar lights are green, quietly ask him for payment. Due to the nature of Subject 17's condition, he's extremely scatterbrained and won't think to pay you otherwise. 15th. Subject 17's payment is gruesome. Once he's ready to pay, he'll eye up one of his limbs, brace himself greatly, then snap it off in the blink of an eye, tossing the severed appendage towards you afterwards. You may have to wait a minute for him to do this, however. Subject 17 won't be willing to self-amputate a limb until the carfentanil has completely erased his ability to feel pain. 16. Once Subject 17 has paid you, quickly but calmly say thank you. Gather whatever body part he paid with and get back in your vehicle calmly but quickly. The process of Subject 17's limb growing back is nothing short of disturbing. Rules for when the lights start blinking. 1. There's a chance that the lights on Subject 17's collar will not only turn red, but also start blinking wildly. If it's not already obvious, this is a very, very bad sign. Subject 17 has become entirely oblivious to his surroundings, highly irrational in his actions, and extremely violently irritable. Unsurprisingly, this more often than not results in extreme acts of violence, and is invariably a result of accidentally provoking him with lights and sudden surprises. The following rules will help you deal with these circumstances best as possible. 2. If Subject 17 has already started consuming the pizza when this happens, simply keep a safe distance from him and let the carfentanil do its job. It'll have the poor thing relaxing again in no time at all. Otherwise, keep reading. 3. Keep an extra tight grip on that music box. Its melody is your best chance of calming him back down, as it's one of the only things that can still catch his attention while he's like this. However, he will definitely be drawn in the melody's direction as a result. Be prepared to duck and dodge as he flails towards you. 4. Should Subject 17 ever scream loudly while in this state of torment, take cover wherever you can. He's about to start angrily slamming things in his yard into the ground with deadly force. The shrapnel sent flying as a result moves so fast it might as well be bullets. 5. Do not for any reason run for your vehicle while Subject 17 is still in this state. Chances are the car will probably end up going airborne if his fists get too close to it. 6. Be especially prepared to dodge from Subject 17 if you notice the large bumps under his skin sliding around. Those are extra muscles. He can relocate them to greatly increase his strength wherever they reattach. Should they end up in his arms, the sheer level of power his fists contain could easily send you flying into a tree. 7. As ridiculous as this might sound, try singing Subject 17 a lullaby in tune with the music box. This semi-regularly soothes him much faster than the music box can by itself. In any case, it almost certainly can't make things worse. 8. To be safe, don't sing anything, alluding to fire or light-producing objects. On the off chance that Subject 17 is aware enough to understand the words, a song about his worst fear will quite likely drive him even further into a panic. 9. Should subject 17 ever stop flailing long enough to look at you, quickly pull out the fake daisy and offer it to him. A gift like that will please him greatly. It's all but guaranteed to snap him out of this frenzy. He'll probably start muttering what sounds like apologies afterwards, and the delivery can once again proceed. 10. If all else fails, look at subject 17 and yell, "Where is Beth?" He should snap out of his frenzied state almost immediately, sobbing and crying excessively before cowering away from you into the depths of his home. This is only a last-ditch solution. It will be very difficult to coax him back outside to finish the delivery. That should be everything you need to know about subject 17. As with most of Cribble-Rock Run's inhabitants, we don't really know where subject 17 came from, or even what he is. The best we can figure is that he's some sort of biological experiment gone horribly, horribly wrong, which then escaped its creator at one point or another. He wanders regularly in any case, only ever coming to Cribble-Rock Run for a few days in October each year. That being said, we have mixed feelings towards delivering to him as a whole. On one hand, he is undeniably troublesome, thanks to his unpredictable behavior paired with his excessive strength. But on another hand, delivering to subject 17 is financially worth it, thanks to a certain associate of ours, with a strong interest in the strange being's bodily tissue, thanks entirely to subject 17's regenerative capabilities. This associate also happens to be the one who supplies us with all that carfentanil in the first place. On yet another hand, regarding subject 17, we hold a certain level of sympathy for the creature. He's stuck in an apparently endless state of extreme pain, most likely due to complications in how he was made, and cries profusely during the rare moments it subsides. Our employees have also seen him muttering apologies as he sobs excessively over miscellaneous objects he keeps tucked within his clothing, often saying what sounds like names towards certain objects. This behavior is how we know he's affected so strongly by the name Beth. Whatever his connection to it is, that name seems to make him even more sad and miserable whenever he says it. Also, noteworthy is subject 17's reaction to accidentally injuring his visitors. He's prone to panicking and wailing whenever this happens, and on most occasions, he even attempts to help his accidental victims. A while back, we sent an employee of ours by the name of Tony delivering to subject 17. Several hours after he left, however, Tony had yet to return from the neighborhood. But before we could go looking for him, we found that he had been randomly dropped off in front of the town's local hospital. He was badly injured, having suffered from excessive blood loss, multiple broken bones, a few dislocated joints, an alarming number of fractures to and around his spine, and a severe concussion. More interestingly, when the poor fellow was initially found by the hospital staff, he had been wrapped in makeshift bandages, fitted with several poorly made splints, and was strapped to a crudely hewn sled, apparently by whomever brought him there to begin with. It's also worth noting that Tony's mysterious appearance coincided perfectly with several reports of extreme vandalism and property damage stretching between the hospital and Cribble-Rock Run. Doctors concluded Tony had been hit by a fast-moving car, and while the local police initially opened a criminal investigation due to the circumstances of Tony's arrival to the hospital, they quickly closed it after about a month. On top of that, Tony unfortunately never recovered consciousness, so we're not entirely sure what exactly happened on that unfortunate delivery. However, there is one other thing worth mentioning about this tragic incident. When Tony initially arrived at the hospital, he was missing his employee's vest, which, as you know, all our drivers are required to wear on deliveries. And when one of our employees delivered to subject 17 a year later, she said that after the creature initially finished eating, he gently pulled out a tattered red vest with our logo on it from a pocket on his pants, then promptly began crying into it profusely. The employee was certain she heard him muttering, "I'm sorry," repeatedly, alongside what sounded like a name she recognized, Tony. The best we can figure is that the collection of names subject 17 mutters, along with the assorted items he mutters them to, all belong to the people he's accidentally lost control around in his pain. He's clearly remorseful of his actions in any case, given how inconsolably depressed he becomes when he's freed from his pain long enough to remember things. But regardless, he is highly unstable and can't effectively control his actions thanks to the consistent agony he suffers from. For this reason, Always be extra cautious around him and be extremely careful not to accidentally set him off. You do not want to be the next person he cries for. Sincerely, Rick and Nick Castillo. Nick and Rick's Pizza, rules for delivering to the Hitherwood Fringe. Hello, Daryl. As you've surely noticed, it's been quite a while since we last sent you to Cribble-Rock Run. We apologize, due to a series of recent and unexpected events, chief of which was an intense, unforecasted lightning storm. We decided it was best to keep the number of our employees in the neighborhood down to a bare minimum for a little while. That being said, we now feel it's relatively safe to start sending the regular number of drivers back to Cribble-Rock Run once more. On top of that, we've also been getting a notable increase of orders from various sections of the neighborhood which you have yet to visit. As such, you'll be going to one of those areas on your next delivery, the Hitherwood Fringe. If that name sounds familiar at all, it's because Hitherwood Forest is the sizable nature preserve-arch park located to the far north of Cribble-Rock Run. It's quite popular amongst hikers and backpackers, as well as an assortment of mushroom gatherers, bird watchers, and a handful of urban legend enthusiasts. That last one is thanks to the forest being frequently visited by many of Cribble-Rock Run's more excitable residents, who are unsurprisingly responsible for most of the peculiar incidents reported to happen in the forest. These incidents range from cryptid sightings, peculiar flashing lights and strange sounds, to inexplicable disappearances, violently ritualistic crimes, and exceedingly odd animal attacks. That said, you won't be delivering to the preserve itself. You see, Hitherwood Forest is so immense that a sizable patch of its trees actually extends into the borders of Cribble-Rock Run. We refer to this patch as the Hitherwood Fringe. Many of the community's more animalistic inhabitants tend to call it home, and other residents of the neighborhood also regularly pass through the fringe on their way to visit the main forest. So, as you can probably guess, in hopes of avoiding any unnecessary accidents with this place, we have a separate set of rules in place just for deliveries to the Hitherwood Fringe. As always, read them thoroughly to make sure you're well prepared for your first delivery to the fringe. After all, preparation is key. Rules for the Hitherwood Fringe. 1. Before leaving on any delivery involving the Hitherwood Fringe, be positive that you have at least one whole candy bar with you. The type or flavor doesn't matter, just as long as it's completely uneaten and high in suja. 2. Due to the layout of the Hitherwood Fringe, any and all deliveries to it will have to be made partially by foot. Fortunately, there's a small patch of bare ground near the entrance to the fringe where you can park your car. It's easily identifiable by the large anthill situated to its left. Make sure you park there and only there. The vehicle won't be safe anywhere else. 3. As you park, be careful you don't get too close to that anthill and be absolutely certain you don't accidentally run it over. The only reason this spot is safe to park on is because we have an agreement with the anthill's keeper. Damaging that hill would therefore have serious consequences. For one thing, we'll probably need to find a different place for our drivers to park. For another, you'll probably need to see a doctor almost immediately afterwards. 4. Upon parking, pull out the candy bar and place it in front of the anthill. Upon doing so, turn away from the mound and proceed with the deliveries. Don't turn towards the mound again until you come back. That candy is payment for the protection of your vehicle. The protector in question dislikes being seen when he collects his payment. 5. As you walk toward the trees, you'll notice about a dozen different paths leading into the fringe. Make sure to only follow the one paved with black gravel. To put it simply, the other paths can't be trusted. 6. Due to the nature of this location, the territories of the residents here, along with the short paths leading to the residences within them, are designated by a distinct set of numbered trail markers rather than traditional addresses. Be careful not to approach any of these markers unless they belong to whomever you're delivering for. You'll likely be viewed as an unwelcome trespasser otherwise. 7. Thanks to the fringe being part of Hitherwood Forest, the trees here are completely normal. Thus, unlike the other trees in the neighborhood, these ones are not a threat of any kind. Do, however, be careful not to harm them in any way. While they certainly can't defend themselves, the trees do have more than a few appreciators here that will eagerly come to their defense. Violently, if necessary. 8. As we just said in the previous rule, the trees native to Hitherwood Forest are completely normal. That being said, keep an eye out for any trees completely barren of leaves and keep as far away from them as you can. Due to the unnatural nature of the forest, no plant here ever loses more than a third of its leaves at any point, even if it would normally shed them all. As such, any leafless tree you see here is not actually a tree, but instead is merely pretending to be a tree. 9. There's a chance you'll hear a sudden, mesmerizingly rhythmic whistling as you walk through the fringe. If and when you hear it, start quietly humming a tune of your own, preferably one that'll get stuck in your head easily. That melody, along with its source, can be highly persuasive. You must distract yourself from it if you don't wish to be subconsciously drawn in its direction. 10. Be also listening for the sound of heavy galloping accompanied with a distinct rattling noise as you traverse the fringe. The second those sounds get within earshot, duck down behind the nearest bush or tree you can find and lay completely flat against the ground until it fades into the distance. You must not be seen by the thing making those sounds. It is always searching for food. 11. On one final note regarding sounds in the fringe, you'll likely hear a variety of voices calling out as you traverse the deeper parts of the fringe. Typically, these voices are nothing to be concerned over. However, if the voices start screaming for help, sobbing gibberish, and shouting, "It's inside," it is crucial that you leave the fringe immediately. The owner of those voices is likely seeking to add a new voice to the collection. 12th. Keep an eye out for a dry riverbed intersecting with the path. Once you reach it, subtly check both directions of the bank before walking across to the other side. This riverbed happens to be the path Cribble-Rock Run's inhabitants take on their way to visit Hitherwood Park. Given the reasons most of them visit the forest, it's probably best that they don't see you. 13. You may notice a massive, incredibly vibrant blue ribbon floating above your head amongst the trees. As it passes by, keep it out of your vision as best you can, and absolutely do not look directly at it. This being is highly predatory. But fortunately, due to reasons that are difficult to explain, it can't see anything that doesn't also see it. 14. While we hope this goes without saying, do not touch any strange-looking structures or ornaments you see hanging from the trees. Among other things, this is a great way to draw the wrong kind of attention. 15. Be sure to regularly look up at the treetops as you walk. The lower branches often hide troublesome creatures with equally troublesome intentions. Should you notice any such creatures, don't walk directly beneath them if avoidable. If not avoidable, sprint past them as quickly as possible. Otherwise, you'll either find that your face is now intimately familiar with the forest floor, or worse, your feet are extremely far from it. 16. Upon attempting to leave the forest, you may find that the path seems to suddenly become endless, with various landmarks appearing far more times than seem possible as you continue walking. If this happens, quickly turn your shirt inside out. A rather mischievous resident here loves messing with our drivers and has apparently chosen to play a prank on you. Reversing your shirt, however, will fix this problem immediately. You shouldn't have any issues leaving after this. That should be everything you need to know regarding the Hitherwood Fringe. While we don't consider the fringe to be overly troublesome, compared to the rest of the neighbourhood at least, we're still a tad selective on whom we send there. This is due primarily to the unpredictable hazards that delivering on foot through a forest bring with it. It also doesn't help that several of the fringe's residents have sizable appetites. Take, for instance, the resident responsible for Rule 10, known as the Skogan. After a word, it shouts at anyone it comes across. This creature is a danger to anything that can't get away from it. By some miracle, we haven't actually had any problems with the thing ourselves yet, but it's definitely caused a fair share of chaos for several visitors of Hitherwood Forest. A while back, there was an incident within Hitherwood Forest involving the Skogan and a group of approximately 8 hikers. The hikers had gone extremely far off the main trail in their exploration of the woods, and unwittingly got dangerously close to Cribble-Rock Run's borders. The result, 6 of them went missing, 1 was critically injured, and the other remained catatonic for several days. When the 2 survivors eventually spoke about what happened to their fellow hikers, both told a story authorities found very difficult to believe. According to the 2 survivors, the group had gone off the designated hiking trail in the hopes of finding edible mushrooms. After about an hour of hiking, however, the whole group heard what sounded like a massive animal galloping through the woods, followed closely by a strange clattering sound. Shortly after, the source of the sound came into their view. It was a massive moose, easily standing over 10 feet at the shoulder. Its fur was matted and wild, and clumps of vegetation wrapped loosely around the giant's legs. More disturbing, however, was the moose's face. Its skull was entirely exposed, with a network of sinews and muscles visibly connecting it at the base to the neck. The only other traces of flesh on it were a pair of bulging, bloodshot eyes peeking from within deep, lidless sockets, and a long, gangly purple tongue draping low between the halves of the lower jaw. Its teeth were also uncharacteristically sharp for a grazing animal. Suddenly, the abomination turned its horrible skull towards the hikers and immediately changed direction, barreling towards them as it yelled what sounded like words, "Skogan! Skogan year! Year mot!" Within seconds, the monster was all but on top of the now panicking group and wildly snatching its members off the ground as they ran. Each time it caught one, it shook the unlucky person once, swallowed them whole, then attempted to grab another. Understandably, the terrified group ended up scattering in multiple directions as the creature lumbered after them. The injured survivor claimed he only escaped because the monstrous beast had grabbed him by his backpack, but when it went to shake him, he was inadvertently flung from his pack and launched into a tree. For reasons the hiker didn't understand, the monster couldn't find him again. It did root around the area for a few seconds, though, as if it knew he was there, but simply couldn't see him. Shortly, the beast gave up, muttering, "Skogan year, Skogan tar," before rushing off in pursuit of the rest of his group and leaving the now seriously hurt hiker crumpled at the base of the tree, barely conscious. But by a stroke of luck, one of the other members of his group noticed him as she was fleeing. Panicked as she was, she quickly scrambled to get her fellow hiker on his feet. Upon realizing he couldn't walk, she instead lifted him off the ground and, with notable difficulty, carried him back to the park's welcome center, where he was eventually rushed to a hospital by medical authorities. Neither of the survivors know what happened to the rest of the group, but given the number of pained screams the girl said she heard as she ran, she's not confident anyone else escaped. That, of course, isn't the only horrible thing that's happened near the Fringe. One young woman claimed a massive floating ribbon swooped down and ate her boyfriend. Another individual was certain he'd seen a pair of massive hands reach down from the trees and rip a hiker off the ground and out of sight. A couple of kids also insisted a while back that several of their friends had followed a whistling, sickly pale child into the forest and never came back out. And one man swore up and down that a dead tree tried to strangle him to death. In short, the Fringe holds countless stories of death and misfortune within its confines, all of which are direct results of the individuals involved not knowing what to do in specific situations. So be absolutely sure you understand the Fringe's rules before going in. You do not want to become another one of those stories. Sincerely, Nick and Rick Castillo.